Welcome to July. Yes. Yes, indeed. Okay. All right. Gian says it's good. We are ready to roll. Hold on, everybody. Bear with me. Bear with the chosen one. Okay. No, that's not it. Hold on, everybody. We're going to be starting in just a moment. Okay. There we go. All right, we're starting in 1 minute. 1 minute. Here we go. Okay. Let's make it happen. Indeed. All right, folks, good afternoon. Here we go. Welcome to July. Kind of a different type of week. It is Tuesday. It is July 1st. I apologize. I've been running around a little bit this morning. Right now, it is 1:06. We are live on AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. Now, wait, there's more. We're also live on our Facebook page, and then we're also live on YouTube. Remember, you can always listen online at our website, which is depetro.com. Folks, this portion of the program, as we kick things off, it's very humid outside. But you know what? It's fine. And this weekend, the 4th of July, the weather is supposed to be spectacular, which is good. And it's good for business. It's good for, it's not easy. I know a number of the people that that try to navigate and run a seasonal business, and it's not easy, but the good weather certainly helps. Folks, this portion of the program, as we kick things off, is brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Everything is available: annuals, perennials, trees and shrubs, hanging pots, 10-inch, 12-inch moss baskets, hanging impatiens, pansy, marigold bags. Large selection of beautiful patio pots are available. Vegetable plants and herbs. As I tell people, they're open 7 days a week. They are Rhode Island's #1 garden center, and they're a full-scale nursery. This weekend, a lot of people are off Thursday. Obviously, everyone is off Friday. Nice long weekend. Maybe you're going to pop by someone's home for a cookout. Maybe someone has a beach house. Why not show up with some beautiful plants, something that will last? There's nothing wrong with showing up with a bottle of wine, but then it's gone. Same thing with, brew, whatever. But full-scale nursery, gift certificates are available, and they're open 7 days a week. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Now, folks, remember, depetro.com. We have a lot of new people. You can read about me on depetro.com. I have a bio. I think I have more experience than some people realize. depetro.com, no eyes. Brought to you by the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. Remember, lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge, nice and air conditioning. And on top of that, they have the market at Coesit. Stop it and see them. It is the Coesit Inn. All right, now, on this Tuesday, it's a big day. We've obviously been consumed with one topic, but there's other topics that we talk about. And right now, as we speak, President Trump is having a press briefing in talking that apparently tomorrow his big, beautiful bill is going to be passed. And the thing about it, J.D. Vance broke the Senate tie. Folks, the part about this is he was the one elected. And like so many other times now, a lot of people are upset with the agenda that the president has set forward. If Harris had won, frightening as that is, then she would have the right to enact her agenda. But she didn't win. And as we've also learned more and more, and I know this all the time, that is incredible though. J.D. Vance broke the 50-50 tie. Senate passes the GOP mega bill. Listen, this is his time. If he's going to get anything done, now is the time. If he is going to anything accomplished, and I think they learned that the first time around. So, and I recognize, especially in our part of the country, the Northeast, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, you have so many different individuals that are one of the reasons why, to me, our states, Rhode Island and Massachusetts, as I've talked about, there's some states that are thriving. There are some states that are thriving, such as I've talked about, Florida is thriving. Texas is thriving. The Northeast is not thriving. New York City potentially is going to elect someone who would just completely destroy New York City. And, you're hearing more people talk about Chicago, which was once a great city, being destroyed. Look at all the major cities absolutely being destroyed. Our part of the country, something has to change with the people that are being elected. They're not serving. They're serving the public. President Trump has a lot of supporters in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, even more in Rhode Island so than Massachusetts. But on the local level, it's not breaking through. And so right now, the president is talking about this alligator Alcatraz. In our part of the country, look at, people are still commenting on the ICE protests that were in downtown Providence. And as I have talked about, I not only support members, of ICE, but I know Tom Homan. I've interviewed him more than a half dozen times. He is solid. They're engaged, they're involved in a war. When you're going to go to war, there's certain people that you want to pick more than others. He's one of those people. But we are surrounded by people that want open borders. And I think a big part of that problem is the two governors in Rhode Island, Governor McKee and Governor Healy. And I'm going to talk about both. Folks, this portion of our program, though, is brought to you by Propane Plus. Call them today for all your propane needs. It's Propane Plus. Call them 401-885-4209 in Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus for all your heating and cooling. Remember, they also have a very user-friendly website. It's propaneplus.com. Whether residential or commercial, you can depend on Propane Plus. You just type in your zip code. But for all your propane needs, call Propane Plus today. Again, in Rhode Island, a great family-run company, 885-4209, or in Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus. I think we're at a Tom Homan. I have people put comments like, yo, how's your buddy Tom Homan doing? He seems to be doing fantastic. I mean, during the course of the summer, I believe, the plan is I plan to have him as a excuse me, as a guest on the program, along with some other people in the administration. But let's talk about, I think the leaders of these states, especially Massachusetts, Rhode Island, I think they need to be called out. The Rhode Island governor, Governor McKee, he's a failed leader. He shouldn't be there. There's something wrong with the voting system. The only reason he's running for re-election is he's convinced he can game the system more than whoever would challenge him in a primary. And I want to remind people, right now, Governor McGreed, as bad as he is, and I think he's actually worse than Chafee, and I didn't think that was possible. 19% approval rating. But he's running unopposed. And I mean a serious challenger. I know we talked to Dan McGowan of the Boston Globe, and he'll say, oh no, Helena Foulkes is definitely running. She hasn't announced yet. There's no one running on the Republican side. And what about the bridge? I don't think we've still gotten full answers on how he got that money for the bridge. I'm willing to bet there's something there. I'm willing to bet we get to the bottom of it. But this business that Rhode Island and Mass are seen as sanctuary states, as others have said, who would sing sanctuary? Criminals sing sanctuary. That's who sings sanctuary. This mayoral candidate in New York City who believes in open borders, open the prisons, $30 an hour minimum wage, and government-run grocery stores. Folks, that's not what the red, white, and blue is all about. Do you understand? And he has supporters in our area. Now, in Rhode Island, you have that State Senator Tierra Mack. You have that David Morales. It's not like he's a lone voice. AOC is endorsing that guy. Their views go beyond politics. I would argue their views, they're actually pretty dangerous. You start talking about opening the prisons, no border, open borders, anybody comes in or out. It's a recipe for anarchy. And look at how locally, why is that allowed? Why locally are they allowed to go after ICE in that way? There's a picture of that, David Morales and some of these other socialist reps holding up signs with vile language about ICE. Can you imagine if, let's just say, play it out, let's just say Harris was president. How would we feel about people holding up signs saying, blank the FBI, blank the IRS, blank Homeland Security? As many of you know, I ride with police each night when we're out. For the most part, we work with police. By the way, we will be riding 4th of July with the Westerly Police. That should be interesting. And do full coverage of it. I'm going to repeat what I've said. I think police have a tough job. And I know a lot of members of law enforcement. And listen, there's been different reforms. It's not easy. They get called in and have to deal with things. Who would want to deal with some of this? Somebody's got to go in. Someone has to deal with these different types of individuals. But why is it in Rhode Island and Mass? Why is ICE allowed to be attacked in that way? Healy and McKee, total silence from them. Total silence on them. And right now, I understand the Boston media specifically is going crazy over this story about this Boston police sergeant who somehow went on an app and ended up with a 13 or 14-year-old boy. Now, listen, the media loves that. That person is not obviously representative of all police. They love the fact, as a matter of fact, that it is a member of the Boston Police Department. Whoever that is, Boston Police Sergeant charged with child rape, whoever that individual is in any profession, teacher, coach, anything like that, absolutely should face consequences of the law. 100%. I'm not defending this individual. Paul Downey raping a 14-year-old boy met on a dating app. But look at some of the other Boston Globe headlines. They like when they have anything to do. Former Boston police officer charged with alleged assault on night of St. Patrick's Day parade. See, they like a story like that. They like a story that has anything to do that is anti-police. But would they run the same type of story if this was someone that worked in a library? If this was someone that, worked in a profession, that a community organizer that they approved of? Obviously, all the headlines are at the spending bill. Listen, we need ICE. Someone has to do that. We can't be overrun. As President Trump said famously in that 2016 debate, either you're going to have a country or you're not going to have a country. But I don't think there's enough elected officials. I don't think that speak out on this. And that was a big group. That was a big demonstration in both Providence and Boston. That wasn't 5 people. That wasn't 20 people. That wasn't even 100 people. They had a couple of thousand people. And in that crowd, they're allowed to do the whole thing of blank ICE. But we all know there's also, for instance, right now, people are saying that apparently there are some farmers and they don't have workers to harvest all the crops because of the crackdown. Well, the plan is that particular company would import workers in, and then they hire them, and then they're responsible for them. And in a sense, it's almost like they have custody of them. Now, I don't know anyone that's against that. I mean, to me, that makes sense. That's totally acceptable. You have a large, it's either, and I've talked about it. I've met this individual. He lives in Washington State, and they have these huge apple orchards, and it's Washington State apples. And they said the best workers are, they bring them in south of the border, they climb the trees, they have the sacks, and they are fantastic. I have no problem with a company like that bringing in labor, almost being a sponsor, so to speak. But what you can't have is, for instance, Providence is overrun with people from the DR, the Dominican, and they just come here for all the benefits, and they don't do it the right way, and they get all of our benefits, and they use the hospitals as like a free walk-in clinic. That's why the emergency rooms are always packed. That is not a system. That makes no sense. But we're still talking about it. And, you notice that no matter how many people they deport and dangerous criminals that they deport, it's still not, they're still getting people that are fighting them. So now, as far as the spending bill, I recognize, like, Elon Musk is against it. Elizabeth Warren is saying Elon Musk is right. Did you think you'd hear that? But listen, he was elected. He has a plan. I go against people that say, I know you were elected, I know you're entitled, but I'm going to fight you. That's like, let him, give it a chance, for crying out loud. He hasn't been wrong on much. They deserve the opportunity to pick who they're going to pick to work with and then get this through. But what I like is they realize now is the time, because then things can change in election year. Things can change after the midterms. I think, if anything, this administration has learned, if you're going to accomplish, get anything done, now is the time. But let's talk about Governor Healy and Governor McKee. Folks, this portion of the material of the program brought to you by Watson Materials. You know, you're outside, located 1500 South County Trail in East Greenwich. Sean is fantastic. He'll give you a free quote, 401-885-0600, Watson Materials. Look at how you can utilize your outside, and it makes a huge difference. And they're the most complete selection of landscape materials in Rhode Island. Landscape lighting, pavers, retaining walls, natural stone, cobblestone. Watson Materials. Call them 401-885-0600, 401-885-0600 for Watson Materials. So you have Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee. Keep in mind, with the bridge fiasco, not one person has been fired. Not one person demoted. That bridge, who knows how long it's going to take that bridge to happen? Who knows what promises he is making? But when you look at that Governor Healy, and I just saw the Globe headline, the Boston Globe headline, talking about the fact that a lot of these shelters, Massachusetts healthcare is already struggling. The U.S. Senate just passed a bill that could push it over the edge. Listen, part of the problem are all these people who don't belong here that utilize our healthcare system. Don't tell me that doesn't happen. Go to any emergency room. It's filled with non-English speaking individuals. Do they have health insurance? No. Do they get treated? Yes. Full family goes. They treat it as a walk-in clinic. That's not fair. We shouldn't have to deal with that. You shouldn't have to deal with that. I think people are starting to finally say, why are we dealing with that? Why do we have to pay for all those people? Why is that your lot in life? That, you follow the law, you work hard, and you're also going to pay the hospital bills for this family from Guatemala who you've never met. Why is that? Why do you have to do that? They never explain why we have to do that. I did see where now they're closing. You think about it. Governor Maura Healy, who I think is very weak, and the fact of spending $1 billion on shelters, and now they claim, well, we're going to close the shelters, and now there's not room for all the people. Well, you should have thought about that before you were spending all those money on people who they're not even citizens. It's also, whether it's Healy or McKee, there's a selfishness that goes with this, and it's definitely among the Ivy Leagues, Harvard, some of the elite universities. We want to have some of the top students, wealthiest students from Brazil come study at Harvard and then live in the Boston area and blah, blah, blah. Well, I would argue Brazil probably needs them more than we do. What the country does and needs to eliminate, and I think President Trump it's the brain drain. If we continue to just take the best and the brightest from these other countries, instead of, look at right now that President Trump has, I think, kind of shown, is that it's almost impossible for Americans to get into these top universities like Harvard, like Yale, some of the other top universities, Princeton. So, but why shouldn't American students be able to go there? And these wealthy, best and brightest from these other countries. Well, Brazil would probably be better served if that person stayed in Brazil and became a doctor in Brazil, or ran for office in Brazil, or ran a university in Brazil. And then maybe all those people from Brazil wouldn't be trying to get into our country. So much like some of these other countries, they keep pouring in. Let some of their students that come to all of our top universities, Columbia, Stanford, let them stay in their countries. Let them improve their countries. Then maybe we won't have it. that they're all just flooding in. You can't have an open door. I am against that. And Governor Healy, to me, her and McKee, it's not leadership. They're just handing out money to try to keep, the vote count. Folks, this portion of our program brought to you by Kids Club on the Pike. Summer camp for your child or grandchild. Kids Club on the Pike. Call Kristen, 401-443-5336, right off of 295 on the Cranston-Johnston line. It's Kids Club on the Pike. They have a great summer camp. Maybe you send your child there for summer camp for a week, maybe for a month. Hey, maybe the whole summer. Call them. It's also a perfect spot, celebration or party for children. They do birthday parties. It's a great spot for birthday parties. But they also have before and after school care, preschool, Kids Club on the Pike, right off of 295. Centrally located, Plainfield Pike. Call them 401-443-5336. So right now, I think it's interesting that we have, it's a battle going on right now. And there are some states that are thriving. And I think the Northeast, where we are, if Rhode Island and Massachusetts, if the states of Rhode Island and Mass, and Connecticut for that matter, but look at New York City. If this guy becomes the mayor of New York, you're going to see companies pulling out of there. Who would stay? Even the governor of New York State, who is a Democrat, is saying the last thing we need are more people fleeing to places like Palm Beach and all of Florida. But there are people who are excited about his candidacy. And if he could become the mayor of New York City, who's to say he couldn't become the governor of New York? Who's to say, couldn't become the mayor of Boston with those beliefs, or the mayor of Providence for that matter? One thing about the Democrat socialists is they get out and vote. Their guy won. Do you understand? He's talking about emptying prisons. If you're a business owner, what would it do for your business? $30 minimum wage, $30 an hour minimum wage. He's also against billionaires. Now that sounds good. That's a Bernie Sanders applause line at a Bernie Sanders AOC rally. We're going to go after these billionaires. Okay, everybody applauds. And he has said, in that meet the press interview, Mondavi, he said, I don't see why anyone would need $1 billion. Okay, what if then he says, as I've said, I don't see why anyone needs $500 million. I don't see why anyone needs $100 million. I don't see why anyone needs more than 50 million or 20 million. And it just keeps going down. And then they keep taking the money. There are people, Democrats in Rhode Island and Mass. The Rhode Island, Providence, Democrat Socialists, they're growing. They're the ones that put on the ICE protest. They're an odd group because they're also the ones that were protesting for Palestine. The groups, the Democrat Socialists, like this guy's a Muslim. He refused to condemn an anti-Semitic slogan that's being used, Universal Intifada. Meet the Press, Kristen Welker asked him like 4 times, sure you don't want to disavow that? He said, hey, listen, I'm not the speech police. You can read that type of language. But folks, this is a time people have to be engaged. People have to pay attention. The Democrat Party, there are people that are trying to be moderate. That's not this crowd. I just saw a poll on Fox yesterday for 2028. Tells you about the Democrat Party. Part of it's kind of laughable, but the number one person the Democrats want for 2028 is Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. The guy's the epitome of an empty suit. He's the one who ran Department of Transportation. They dropped him off in an SUV half mile from the press conference, and then they had him ride up on a bike. He's the one who took off the entire summer, all the problems with the bridges and so forth, because he was on paternity leave. He and his partner adopted. He's considered a front runner. AOC is considered a front runner. These people don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in capitalism. I don't understand the anti-ICE stuff, you know. As I've said, I mean, I've covered ICE somewhat. We're going to cover them more. They're going to be very active, continue to be very active in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. I think this is a battle, though, because our part of the country, there are states that are pulling ahead. I'm hearing more and more people, and maybe you're watching and you're thinking the same thing. Think of the number of people that are saying, that's it, I'm moving to South Carolina. I'm moving to North Carolina. I'm moving to Tennessee. I'm moving to Georgia. I'm moving to Texas. People can be more mobile. You know, you hate the thought of that. But for those of you that watch when we're out in the city, Road Patrol Live, I mean, this, I don't know who these people are. I don't know who's gonna pay for all of this. I don't think any of us want to get stuck paying for it. That's for sure. Folks, this portion of our program, now remember, if you ever have, when disaster strikes, you can depend on Serve Pro of Providence. Call them today, 401 941 5500. 401 941 5500. Serve Pro of Providence. They're fast, they're thorough, they're professional. Maybe if you have a fire, or maybe you have a flood, whether it's water damage, mold, Serve Pro of Providence. Call them today, 401 941 5500. 401 941 5500. When disaster strikes, Serve Pro of Providence. They're available 24/7. You have a fire, flood, mold, Serve Pro of Providence. They are restoration, reliability, and results. And they're available 24/7. Serve Pro of Providence. They'll be on the scene. 401 941 5500. Well, folks, good afternoon. Now, just the schedule for the week. So today, again, welcome to July 1st on the year, obviously. Friday, day off. Friday, day off from this. We will be doing the 4:30, except this afternoon, I believe I'm on assignment, which is some of the things that I get involved in. Everything's not live. Sometimes there are people that allow me to follow with them, go with them, but we can't be live because it would jeopardize what they're involved in. So in this afternoon, I believe we're doing Fugitive Task Force. We can't be live because then the fugitive could see, oh, wow, look who's outside. I think I'll, hide under the bed, or I'll escape out the back door. We will return to the 30, but I don't think that's going to happen for today. But also, there's so many different stories, and I like to do things that impact us. I understand that a lot of people are upset about the Brian Kohlberger and the plea agreement to spare him the death penalty. But some of the members of the media that are saying that, I view it as they viewed that trial as this is the next big thing and we can cash in. I think I don't have like a big reaction to it. I know some people are upset that he's not going to go to trial. But at the same time, it's a lot on the families. I saw someone post, we're never going to know what happened. Don't we know what happened? I mean, he killed her. How much detail do you need? I don't understand that. No, we're never going to know what happened. Well, I don't know. He's pleading guilty to it. Do you need to? Do you need to know the exact second he unlocked the door? Do you need to know like all of his movements? Unless I'm missing something, I think we have a pretty good handle on what happened. We're never gonna know. How much detail do you need? And I could see. I know there's one family that's very outspoken, and there's one family that they want. No, he don't accept it. He's gotta go. No, we want that. Well, again, they did seem caught off guard. I get that some people you want them to put to death, but it's such a long process. And when you have that many families involved, maybe three of the other families are all saying, I don't feel like going through a trial. But I come back to, I'm a little lost on why some people are upset, other than there were people who were going to fly there and follow it and cover it, and it was supposed to be televised, and the Brian Kohlberger trial. But it's just such a horrific crime that I don't, it's not like he's getting away. It's not like he's going to walk free. I don't, okay, so one family's upset because they wanted him to face the death penalty. Then they have a reason to be upset. But I don't understand, like the general public, I should say, being upset. And I reject that notion. No, we're never going to know what happened. I'm sure with his sentencing, they will lay out exactly what happened. But as someone that I've dealt with families that have lost a family member to a very violent death, it is very difficult for them to go through the trial. Very difficult. So, and there was one just a year ago, and that was very difficult for that family. There was another family where I'm very friendly with the mother. I knew the person that was killed. She used to communicate with me on social media, and she suffered a very violent death from a boyfriend she had broken up with. And so somehow something happened, plea agreement, and now there's no trial. So, but I don't know. That would have been, you're talking about crime scene photos, autopsies, and I don't know if people realize what goes into something like that, let alone maybe it's a gore factor. Maybe there's some people that just want to see what the crime scene looked like. Maybe that's what it comes down to. Because I think there's a lot of people that, I don't think the families would want to have everyone looking at that. It's very, very difficult for the families. The case that I'm referring to, where it was a very violent death, it actually happened in Cranston, right on the Cranston 2019 Cranston Providence line, and it was a gruesome crime scene, and he was supposed to go to trial, and then he just took a plea. The loser, degenerate boyfriend who got out of the ACI and broke into her apartment and killed her. And so I know that would have been very, very traumatic for the family to have to go through that. Folks, this portion of our program, if you would like to improve the value of your home or business, Roof Co. Rhode Island, 401-868-7149. Roof Co. Rhode Island, 401-868-7149. Whether it's wind damage, maybe it's a leaky roof, missing lifted or curled shingles, granules in the gutter, they'll do it all. 401-868-7149. Roof Co. Rhode Island. Joe, they'd be happy to inspect your roof for wind damage and give you a free estimate. And on top of that, a new roof improves the value of your home. Roof Co. Rhode Island, 401-868-7149. Well, folks, good afternoon. And again, I'm glad the weather's nice. The third, let me just look as I look at the weather forecast. We will be out this evening, obviously, on road patrol. And then I'm looking at, this has turned into, it's humid out. Oh, a little bit rain later. All right, we'll go out earlier. And then I don't know, some minor showers tomorrow. But Thursday, 86 and sunny. And the 4th of July is 80 and sunny. So on the 4th of July, right now, the plan is we will be down in Westerly with the Westerly police. And then we'll also, um, we will return with Cranston, and there's another department that we're talking to. For those, we have so many new people, especially on YouTube, that follow. And thank you, everyone. And thank you for all your support with our content. We mostly focus on crime. I normally don't do politics unless political decisions lead to crime. Political decisions can lead to an increase in crime. And then we get into that. As far as what's the budget in Massachusetts, I really don't care. I do talk to Justin Katz once a week. The fact that the Rhode Island budget is basically double the state of New Hampshire. But I'm more concerned and like to focus on, to me, crime can affect quality of life. And crime continually evolves and changes. If there's someone was asking me, what's the next trial? I don't know what the next trial is. We'll have to look at the calendar. Covering a trial, it's very time consuming. And I normally don't like to be inside a courthouse, the amount of time I spent. We'll see what's the next trial down the line. Court, sometimes the trials, they get delayed. I have covered a number of trials. We'll cover some more. I'd like to explore a way to cover some of the trials that I may find interesting. But dealing with the courthouse, they're not always as easy to deal with as people may think. Many times when I covered the Venezuelan gang members, they were very clear, do not show the judge, which is fine. So not everybody's like that. This particular judge was. Many judges do not want any cameras in the courtroom. So to answer the question, it'll depend on what the next case is, big trial. What are the dynamics of it? And for instance, the Brian Walsh case, that could be interesting on a mass. But sometimes there's so many delays with these things that no decision, that's a game time decision. Folks, this portion of the program, if you've been thinking of improving your home or business, especially your home, Arch Design Builders, call them today, 401-207-4124, 401-207-4124. That gets you the free consultation with my friends, Ed and Roxanne at Arch Design Builders, 401-218-9707. And remember, maybe if you're listening or watching right now and you're saying, you know what, it is time to upgrade our kitchen or bathroom or basement or deck or a special project, Arch Design Builders, 401-207-4124, 401-207-4124 for Arch Design Builders. Now, speaking of police, the Providence Police Department, that Officer Hanley, we'll talk about this with Stephanie Murphy on Thursday, our legal expert. But the Providence Police Department, they don't want that guy Hanley back on the force, but he's back on the force. Now, this Boston police officer that met a 14-year-old boy online, whatever, listen, there's someone that should not be a police officer. I have no problem calling out anyone that should not be that. But by and large, especially if you see when we're out, the police that I deal with, they're dependable men and women. They're solid. You need someone that's going to do that. They're constantly under attack. I think the more that certain people enable some of the criminals, especially as I started off by saying, I'm very uncomfortable with the people that criticize ICE. I've heard for years from law enforcement how difficult it is when you're trying to navigate with someone who, A, doesn't speak English, 2, they don't have a Rhode Island or Massachusetts ID, You don't know really who they are, where they live. They're not showing up for court. They're just floating around. I'm at a loss as to why some people feel the need and say, oh no, they absolutely should be floating around us. What Governor Healy in Mass, especially her, to spend $1 billion on these migrant shelters, taxpayer money, putting these people up and everything that went along with it. I mean, now you realize how absurd it is. I also believe that when President Trump is done, I don't see how people are going to say, let's go back to the way it was, especially, given some time to make things safer, to really get the economy going, bring down some of these trade barriers. I think we're on the cusp of no one's going to want to go backwards. And right now, the most talked about Democrat out there is the Democrat socialist who won the Democrat mayoral primary in New York City. And he wants $30 an hour minimum wage. Government run grocery stores. Who wants to deal with that? This is what we're selling. Can't fire anybody. Ridiculous benefit plans, and then competing unfairly with private enterprise. He's in favor of redistribution of wealth. Folks, this portion of our program is brought to you by Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Now listen, call Corey today, especially if you're a business owner, because they can do a fantastic job for your parking lot. 401-283-9815. They offer line striping, which is important in a parking lot. Now they'll also resurface pickleball court, tennis, basketball. They epoxy garages and patios, decorative concrete flooring, pothole repair, quality asphalt seal coating. Call Corey today. Free estimate. Now, I also share their social media. 401-283-9815. Quality asphalt seal coating. Get it done. And on top of that, now remember, especially if you are a business owner, you have to maintain, as a matter of fact, your parking lot a certain way. And what can help you do that is quality asphalt seal coating, whether it's line striping or they fix potholes, cracks for your parking lot. They keep the lines bright, direct traffic safety. They make sure that your lot is ADA compliance with the city, town regulations. You don't want to get flagged, avoid fines for cities and towns. It's quality asphalt seal coating. Call Corey, 401-283-9815. Well, folks, again, good afternoon. Now, we will be out tonight with Road Patrol Live. And then normally we do the 4:30, but I'm pretty sure I'm going on Fugitive Task Force. So we can't go live on something like that. It would tip off the person. And also, by the way, I should mention, if the individual is not there, we normally don't post because that doesn't mean they're going to go back. Now, the last one we did, it took a while. The filming was great, right? I'm right with them, kind of embedded. Not kind of, I'm embedded. The only thing is, it turned out, it was inside intel, but it was the person they were looking for, it was his brother that was living there, not him. So I'm not gonna post that because then they're still looking for the person they're looking for. But the heat and the weather over the next couple of weeks, as I've said, police are under attack, and there's a lot of angst right now. There's a lot of anger out there. Locally, obviously, Pawtucket has a serious problem right now with gang issues. We'll focus on that. And then I just have a problem with a certain department, as I've said, with why ICE Todd Lyons, he is real does a fantastic job. He was in charge of Ice Boston. Now he's in charge of the whole thing, and they work obviously with Tom Holman, who's the board of czar. But I'm very uncomfortable with these are elected officials who then speak out and encourage people to either not cooperate or even worse towards members of ICE. Fox did a big story. There was a mayor on the West Coast, who was saying, where's all our gang members? And we need all our gang members out there to protect the turf and blah blah blah. Listen, you're an elected official. You can't have people that's insanity. So they are a government agency. ICE as I've said, FBI, Homeland Security, IRS. ICE is a federal, law enforcement agency. And when you have public officials that are telling people not to cooperate and encouraging violence against them, you also see how it was just about 2 to 3 weeks ago, there was a raid on a car wash right on Douglas Avenue in Providence. And the reason they raided there is allegedly whoever either worked at the car wash or owned the car wash, whatever, but they were selling and moving fentanyl out of there. As soon as word spread, there were like 30 people standing outside because they were under the impression it was an ICE raid. It wasn't an ICE raid. Folks, this portion of our program is also, and I want to, Lindsay asked me. So Lindsay heard me mention J. Perry Paving. And Lindsay's dad is a veteran, and she sent me a nice email. Big fan of the program. I watch you on YouTube. Thank you, Lindsay. Who is that company you said that has a special package for veterans? J. Perry Paving, Lindsay. They have no one, if you're related to a veteran or you're a veteran, either yourself or your folks or your grandparents or spouse or your girlfriend or aunt, whoever it is, veteran, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. J. Perry Paving, free estimate, any project, 401-732-1730. Free estimate. Contact them. Now, you can find them on social media. I like when they do the before and after. But letter J, J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. Get a free estimate. What a difference it's going to make. And especially if either you are a veteran or family members a veteran, if you live in your street, your neighborhood, and there's a couple of veterans, why not get it done all at once? J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730, 401-732-1730, letter J. It's J, it's Perry Paving. Well, folks, again, good afternoon. A couple other reminders, because people do ask me. Someone asked me, who is the lawn care company that I recommend? Lawn Doctor of Rhode Island. They're the best. Makes your lawn look like a golf course. They do it the 8 cycle. The best way, easiest way to contact them is online at lawndoctor.com. Also, don't forget about JD Lawn Care. What a fantastic job they do. 401 JD Lawn Care and Tree Service, 401-441-0154, 401-441-0154. I share their Facebook page, JD Lawn Care and Tree Service. And I also want to mention, now this time of year, we wait for this time of year. You have a yard, but you can't use your yard because you get eaten alive by mosquitoes. And like many of you, I can't stand mosquitoes, and I attract mosquitoes. That's why I contacted Mosquito Joe of Rhode Island. And this is one of the best companies I've ever worked with. Mosquito Joe of Rhode Island. My house, my property, my yard deck, we can sit outside and you don't get bitten. But I had friends over. They're like, this is amazing. I feel like I'm sitting inside. Mosquito Joe of Rhode Island. Look for them online. They're the real deal. I deal with a lot of different companies. Mosquito Joe of Rhode Island is one of the top ones. 401-426-2032. They'll tell you before they come. They treat your yard and property, and you can sit outside and enjoy it. Not only is it, it makes sense for you, but for your family, or maybe you have a grandchild and they're outside playing and all of a sudden they have welts. Mosquito Joe of Rhode Island, they're so impressive to deal with. And they tell you before they're going to come, and then they treat it. They're one of the most remarkable companies, because I've always felt like this is ridiculous. I can't even sit outside. And I hate the whole thing of off and putting on spray and the, stupid candles and the whole thing. Mosquito Joe of Rhode Island is a life changer. All right, folks, listen, thank you for tuning in. I believe, could be a change. I believe I'm going to be an assignment this afternoon, Fugitive Task Force. But we will be out tonight, and then we'll be out the following nights. Make sure you follow our page on YouTube, follow us on X, and then, of course, follow and share on Facebook. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. Everyone else, we'll see you tonight on Road Patrol Live.